to the Prophecy Club. We're going to continue talking with Bill Federer today. Now, he's going to be making 3 DVDs October the 6th, and that's at the Spirit of Prophecy Church Prophecy Club on the corner of Park and K in Plano. The exact address is 2540 K Avenue, Suite 100. Doors will be open actually 10 a.m. He's going to be speaking from 11 to 1, 2 to 4, and 5 to 7, making 3 DVDs, the titles of which are Change to Chains, kind of hard to say, and Islamic Conquest Past and Present, and 32 Miracles in American History. Each one of those is valued at $30. You can get all 3 of them for a gift of $50 by calling Prophecy Club, but I recommend you get the entire October speaker package. That is 8 DVDs valued at $240 for a gift of just $150. And you'd call 785-266-1112 or order online at prophecyclub.com. Now, in the last broadcast, we talked about change to chains, and we're going to continue on that topic. So, Bill Federer, welcome back to the Prophecy Club.
Oh, great to be with you.
All right, well, tell us more about change to chains.
Well, the first country that was ruled without a king is Israel. They come out of Egypt, and who controlled everything in Egypt? The Pharaoh. He owned land, he owned the cattle, he owned the people. And then they were brought out of Egypt, and they crossed into the Promised Land. And this is interesting. All those boring chapters in the book of Judges where they're dividing up the land, Joshua, Judges, those are revolutionary. You think, what? Yeah, in Egypt, the Pharaoh owned all the land. In Mesopotamia, the kings of Moab and the Ammonites and the Edomites and Amalekites, the kings controlled their land. And in China, there were 18 major Chinese dynasties over 5,000 years, and the emperors were the ones that dictated ultimately who controlled the land. And you go around the world, and you see that these chapters in the book of Joshua Judges, where the land is being divided up amongst the families, and they do surveys and lots, and Caleb's daughter gets off the donkey and goes to her dad and says, "Can I have the spring on the other side of the field too?" And he goes, "Okay, yeah." And then my mom's name is Tirzah. The first mention of Tirzah in the Bible is she was a daughter of Zelophehad, this guy who had no sons. They're dividing up the land. The daughters go to Moses, and they said, aren't we going to get any land? Is our dad's name going to be forgotten? And Moses says, yes, you get land, just marry someone within your tribe. This was unheard of in world history, that individual women getting land and families, and the verse that says don't move the ancient boundary marker between properties indicated that these were individual citizens that own the land. Now, if you own your own land, you can accumulate sheep and cattle and grain, and you can be in a position to lend and not have to borrow. And the Bible called that being blessed. Karl Marx called it being a capitalist. You've got capital, you got stuff, you worked hard, saved it, right? And so what we see is that God's perfect plan for Israel was to have everyone equal before this law, because there was no king to butter up next to, and everybody owned private property. But since there was no king to tell them what to do, it was up to the individual citizen to press in and stay on fire for God. But as the years went by, Israel would backslide until you get to that gross last chapter of Judges, and the guy's concubine, and she's raped, and he chops up her body and sends pieces of it all around. And you're like, gross, why is this? In the Bible, God's saying, look, people left to themselves are going to gravitate toward their selfish nature and neglect God. And then there's that last line that says, and everyone did what was right in their own eyes. And because it got so chaotic, they went to Samuel and said, you know what, we decided we don't want to be like this anymore. We want to be like all the other countries. We want a king. And Samuel said, you're not going to like this guy. He is going to take your best land and give it to his favorites, wealth redistribution. He's going to make your daughters be cooks and sons run before his chariots. He will determine the fate of your lives. And the people said, we don't care. We want him anyway. And then Samuel cries all night long, and the Lord said, they did not reject you, they rejected me. So again, God's perfect plan for Israel was to have everyone equal before the law and them to own their own private property. Well, their experiment was over, Saul takes over, and then we skip over to Athens. Now, there is Tyre. Remember the guy that supplied the cedar for the temple in Jerusalem, the king of Tyre? And he was Phoenician, and the Phoenicians were sailors, and they sailed all around the Caribbean, and because it was so stretched out with this ocean, it was really hard to have a dominant empire. And so a lot of these little, settlements got a chance to experiment. Most of them gravitated toward the king thing, but he sent some of them to Thebes, and they started Greece. So Greece can be traced to the Phoenicians, and the daughter of the king of Tyre was named Europa, and that's where Europe gets its name. And so in Thebes and in Athens, they developed different styles of city government. And again, most of them have judges, but eventually, a king and different groups. But Athens is one that we focus on. Set up by a guy named Solon, S-O-L-O-N. Solon sets up a democracy. Demos means people, and krasi means rule. And then Solon leaves town, and the city has to be ruled this way because he's gone. And so in a democracy in Athens, everybody every day went down to the agora, the marketplace, and talked politics. And if you did not keep up with politics in Athens, you were called an idiotus, an idiot. He didn't know what's going on. He's an idiot. And so here we have a phenomenon that if there's a king and you have an agenda, you lobby the king. And you have to bribe his court, like the Mandarin eunuchs that surrounded the Chinese emperors and their harems. I mean, you had to give them all kinds of money and favors even to get in to see the emperor. Well, in Athens, there was no emperor. The people made the decisions. Well, how do you lobby the whole people? Theater. They invented theater not because they wanted some entertainment. It was a way to sway the views of the entire city all at once. And so they would have comedies and tragedies, and they would extol some points of view and ridicule others. And so from that time till now, theater has always been political, and the media. And so you think of your favorite sitcom or movie, and there's some character that's charming or brave, and they begin to make morally compromising decisions. Maybe they sleep around, or they lie, or they're deceptive, or alternative lifestyles, and you find yourself apologizing for them. It's like, yeah, I know that it's bad that James Bond's sleeping around, but he's about to save the world, so it's sort of okay. And then they usually make the fool or the buffoon somebody that holds to traditional values, like Homer Simpson and the father figures made fun of, or Archie Bunker, or the Christian views or whatever. And so if you watch these shows long enough, your views will be lobbied, and you will gradually move into accepting what the people that write the scripts and that pay for the shows are, their views. And so it's just the same way in Athens. The theater was the way to influence the populace. Well, what happened in Athens? There was a guy that lived during the Athenian democracy, and his name was Plato, P-L-A-T-O, and he said democracy was chaos, everybody having a say on everything. And so he said that the city government will probably go through 5 phases. First, rule of the capable. These are people that know how to run farms and businesses, and they just know how to run governments. They're just responsible. They're followed by lovers of fame. These are people that have no experience running anything. They're just famous, maybe like some actor that gets to be the governor of California or something, And now, so you go from rule of the capable to rule of the famous. Now, these famous guys, they don't have any experience running anything. And so when they get in, they begin to vote themselves favors and vote their family and friends favors, and it creates a little clique, sort of like a high school clique. And they, think, okay, we're the special inside group, and we get to pass laws we don't have to abide by. We can do insider trading. And the people get upset at this oligarchy, this clique, this rule of few. And so the people finally throw out this oligarchy, and they set up a democracy. This is great. The people get a chance to rule themselves, but the people have no experience ruling themselves. And there's a big pot of money sitting in the city treasury that they have control over. And they're like, you mean all that money's sitting there and we decide what happens to it? And they just can't resist the same temptation that the favorites did, as they begin to spread the money around. And they begin to take the money out of the city treasury and pass it out amongst themselves. And then when there's no money left, they say, well, where's the more money? The rich people, they got the money. Let's go after the rich. And then when there's no more rich, or any that had sense left town, then they begin to bicker amongst themselves. Well, we don't have enough money. Well, don't take my pot. Well, don't take mine. Then they begin to fight, and it turns into chaos and anarchy. And then they say, can't somebody come along and fix this mess? And somebody comes along and says, I'll fix it. Just give me your freedoms, your rights, your money, your power. And they make themselves a tyrant. And so Plato said democracy without virtue and self-control always ends in chaos and anarchy, out of which a tyrant arises. And so by inference, if you want to be the tyrant and there is a democracy, you would want to have it turn into chaos and anarchy. And so we see some of the agendas that's being put upon us here in America. It's almost as if there's this goal to have it devolve into anarchy. And so it gets so bad that people say, can't somebody fix this? And then somebody will come along and say, I'll fix it. Just let all the power concentrate into my hands, and I'll take care of everybody. And then you'll be back to the king, where if you're friends with the king, you're more equal. If you're not friends with the king, you're less equal. And if you're an enemy, you're dead. But so that was Athens. And then we go through some more and more centuries and more centuries. Finally, you come up with
Let me jump in
Rome.
here with a question. I also understand that Athens, or specifically Greece, would pass laws that were favoring any kind of god except for the Christian God.
I'm talking basically 600 to 300 BC is when the Athenian democracy took place.
Okay.
So what happened to Athens? Well, in the north, there was a king of Macedon, and his name was Philip. And he conquers different cities and gold and mines, and he gets this gold. And Philip of Macedon decides to take some of his money and bribe some of the prominent Athenian citizens so that when they went into the Agora marketplace to talk politics every day, and the people are saying, we need to get our defense, Philip's conquering these cities, these paid propagandists would stand up and say, no, calm down, Philip's not such a bad guy. I hear he's liberating these cities, and they love him. And then these propagandists would gather around themselves what Lenin called useful idiots, people that believed the lies. Can you believe that? They get out with their Occupy signs and so forth. And so anyway, it so confused Athens that when Philip marched up to the walls, they threw the doors open, Philip walks in, and the people of Athens did not get a chance to rule themselves again for over 2,000 years. After Philip came his son Alexander the Great, and then finally came the Roman emperors, and then the Byzantine emperors, and then the Muslim sultans, and then, they got free in the 1800s, but then they got, under World War I and World War II under the Nazis, and finally they got their freedom, but then they joined the EU and got in debt, and now the people of Athens do not get a chance to rule themselves again. So a people ruling themselves is a very rare occurrence in world history. It's sort of like a dandelion sprouting through the pavement of a parking lot, and Athens, their experiment was over. So now we've got the norm is kings, we got Israel tried something, and then Athens, and then Rome. And if I have a second, a few more minutes, I'd be glad to share a little bit of that.
Sure, go for it.
Rome had a king around 500 BC who raped a girl named Lucretia. And the girl gets all the Roman leaders together and commits suicide right in front of them. These Roman leaders are so distraught, they kill the king and make a rule that if anybody in Rome would ever declare themselves a king, anybody could kill that guy without any repercussions. So for 500 years, nobody in Rome wanted to come anywhere near being called a king. Matter of fact, there was a guy named Publius who helped set up the Roman Republic, and he was building a mansion. Rumor was he was thinking of being king. When he heard the rumor, he destroyed his own mansion. So Rome was a republic, res publica, in the place of. You think, well, what's the difference between a republic and a democracy? Democracy only worked successfully on a city level because you had to personally go every day to the Agora marketplace and talk politics. Once a democracy got beyond a city level to surrounding cities, whoever brought the news of what was happening could color the news to favor their particular views. And so the people in the other cities that would be voting on it, they really wouldn't be voting on it. They would be voting on it based on what the news media told them it was. And so it began to fall apart. So democracy really only works successfully on a citywide level. Republic is you take care of your farm and your business, and you have a res publica, which means in the place of. You have someone that is in your place that you trust. They keep up with politics every day in the marketplace. And so a republic is you've got these representatives that are looking out for your interests, and they're the ones that keep up with it every day. Now, in Rome, they had 600 representatives. They were called senators. And in Rome, these senators were not elected. They were hereditary, sort of like ours. In other words, once our guys get in, they sort of fix it so they can get back in. But nevertheless, Rome, their senators went back to the paters or the founders of the Roman Republic. And so these were these families, and over the centuries, these senator families became wealthier and wealthier, and the people got in debt and in debt. And so by the time you get around 45 BC, from 500 BC to 45, quite a long time, actually, there was one family who was part of the aristocratic people, but his dad got in trouble with some people and got his money taken away. And so this guy's name was Julius Caesar. Julius Caesar joins the military to escape debt collectors. Turns out he's a great general, conquers in Gaul, France, and brings back lots and lots of booty and money and slaves and passes it out to the citizens of Rome. So the citizens of Rome really like this Caesar guy. Caesar decides to run for Senate, and he gets in, and they go from, over the centuries, from the 600 down to 1 eventually, but they do it first by, you get a couple dozen here that or team up, and a couple dozen here, and then it gets up to 2 or 3 groups, and finally get down to 3 groups, and these 3 groups were ruled by Caesar, Pompey, who was the Republican establishment guy, who wanted to sort of keep the status quo, and then there was Crassus. Crassus was the richest guy in Rome. He was sort of like the George Soros. And, George Soros started off making his money by, and they're in the Nazi time, going into the homes and, taking the money from the Jews that were carted off to the, Holocaust. But Crassus had a fire brigade. And in Rome, when someone's house was on fire, his fire brigade would run up to the house and negotiate buying this burning house. And the guy was waiting there, and it's like, hurry up and sell it. It's burning. He'd finally settle for pennies on the dollar. They'd put out the fire and keep what was left. And so Crassus ends up becoming the richest guy in Rome. So Caesar makes a triumvirate, a group of 3 guys that are ruling Rome together, the triumvirate. So it's Caesar, Pompey, and Crassus. Now Crassus dies in 53 BC, so it turns into a tug-of-war between Caesar and Pompey. Pompey is the rich Republican establishment guy, wants to sort of keep the status quo. Yes, we know the senators are wealthy, the people are in debt, but let's just sort of keep this. And then there's Caesar. And since there's no Crassus to underwrite his campaign, he goes to the people and says, look, I'm for you against these terrible rich people. They have all the money, and you're poor. We need pay-czars, and we need to limit them. And so, but Caesar does not have any money to pay his supporters. And so what does he do? He raids the federal treasury, the Temple of Saturn, where there is 400 years of Roman gold stored up. I mean, it was beyond people's imagination to even touch this. These pagan Romans had a whole religious order of these pagan priests that their life's purpose was to guard this treasury. Well, Caesar goes up, rattles his sword, and they open the doors. He takes the money, and he uses the money to buy supporters. And Caesar said, use money to get men, use men to get money. Very similar to taking stimulus money and government contracts and funneling it to, union supporters and Acorn, SAIU, and so forth. And matter of fact, this idea that the more people you can put out of work and get dependent on government handouts, they're going to vote to continue to get these handouts, and they're going to vote you back in power. So Caesar did this. So he took this federal money and used the money to buy supporters against this Republican establishment guy, Pompey. Well, Pompey is finally defeated and gets his head chopped off, and Caesar, he's now in charge. Does he go to the people and say, look, you helped me get in, now you can help run Rome with me? No way. He makes himself dictator for life, starts the cult of Julius Caesar, and makes Mark Antony his high priest. In other words, he makes himself a god. And so he is very efficient, doing all these building works in Rome. Boy, this is great, dude, doing handouts, and giving the money to the people. Now these rich Republican senator people, they think, if we can just kill Caesar, we can get back to the Republic. So they surround him on the Ides of March 15th, and stab him to death. And they think, we saved the Republic. But guess what? The people liked Caesar because he handed out free stuff. So the people begin to riot and burn the houses of these wealthy people, and the only way they could get any type of order restored was to get Caesar's nephew, Octavius, and he becomes Caesar Augustus, Caesar the Divine. Now he owns the empire. So the emperor owns the empire. And if you're friends with the emperor, you're more equal. If you're not friends with the emperor, you're less equal. You're an enemy of the emperor, you're dead. It's called treason. And so, but just to remind everybody that God is still God, is that this Augustus Caesar had this idea that he wanted to take a census of the world, including this area they controlled of Palestine. And so the family of Mary and Joseph had to go to Bethlehem for this census, and lo and behold, Jesus was born in Bethlehem, fulfilling the prophecy. And so we have to remind ourselves that God is still in control. And it's sort of like a double whammy, that the crisis causes power to concentrate into the hands of a dictator, but the flip side is it's a crisis that turns people to Christ. And so the same crisis that is going to cause the power to concentrate ultimately into the hands of a global dictator, that same crisis, I believe, is going to cause there to be a global revival. And it's going to cause people to rise up in leadership and the body, sort of like in China when they got rid of all the churches in the 1950s and killed all those people. And we thought, oh, Christianity is dead in China. Well, under the surface, they began to evangelize, and the next couple generations later, we found there's hundreds of millions of Chinese. How did they do it? They couldn't have a radio ministry. They couldn't have a TV ministry. They couldn't, pass out pamphlets on a street corner. How did they do it? Well, the teachers at that time, like Watchman Nee and so forth, they would say, okay, listen for those around you with needs. Do the best you can to meet their need. Become their friend. Introduce them to some of your other Christian friends, and then introduce them to Jesus. And so they would do this all across China. And
okay, let me jump in again. We're running out of time. Okay, you're going to be speaking Saturday, October the 6th. Doors will open at 10. He's going to be giving 3 talks, making 3 DVDs, 11 to 1, 2 to 4, 5 to 7. I'm saying again, 11 to 1, 2 to 4, 5 to 7. 3 topics are change to chains. He's been talking on that the last couple of days. And also, the next broadcast is going to talk on Islamic conquest, past and present. And then finally, 32 miracles in American history. So briefly tell us about each one of those.
Islam. Muhammad was a religious leader. Then he became a political leader. Then he became a military leader and fought in 66 battles. And so the rightly guided caliphs, the Muslim leaders after Muhammad, they were military leaders. And they conquered Yemen, which was a Jewish kingdom. And they conquered Syria, which was the first country to completely be Christian.
So this is a story of basically the story of Islam and how it came to be where it is today.
Yeah, Egypt was Christian. Along North Africa used to be Christian. And so it has this military conquest part of it. And I tell this whole story with pictures and maps and graphs. It is fascinating, and you'll love it. And then the other one is 32 stories of amazing miracles in American history. And so these are crises in the past, during the French and Indian War, Revolutionary War, War of 1812, all the way up to the Civil War, World War I, II, that we had leaders that called for days of prayer and even fasting, if you can believe that. And then people rose up with faith and courage, and our country was saved. And so we're facing crises today financially and with Islamic terrorism and so forth. We need to remind ourselves that we have this tradition, even though the ACLU tries to get rid of God, the people in America have always sought God, and God in His mercy has come through for us, and we need to do that again today.
Okay, and finally, you're also going to be ministering Sunday morning at the Spirit of Prophecy Church Prophecy Club, Sunday morning at 9:30, and then Bree Keaton is going to be ministering beginning at 10:30. Bill, do you have any idea on what your topic is going to be Sunday morning?
Well, it's going to be exciting, and I'm going to keep it in my heart until then. But
okay.
I appreciate you so much for having me.
Hey, we are blessed to have you, brother. As you can tell, this Bill Federer is a wealth of information, and I strongly recommend you come to these meetings, but I also strongly recommend you get the DVDs. Now, there's, again, 3 of them with Bill: Change to Chains, Islamic Conquest, and 32 Miracles in American History. Each one, $30 gift, or all 3 of them for a $50 gift, or better yet, get the entire month of October speakers, 8 DVDs valued at $240, all available, even though they're all brand new, not even taped yet, all available for a gift of just $150 or more. And to get that, you can go to prophecyclub.com, or you can also call us, 785-266-1112, and you want to ask for the October speaker gift offer. Second offer would be the Bill Federer gift offer, all 3 of the DVDs, gift of $50 or more, or each one valued at $30. And you can call 785-266-1112 or online at prophecyclub.com. Until then, thank you. Thank you very much for listening. Thank you for your prayers, and thank you for your gifts of support. God bless.
Be a partaker in warning and saving souls by partnering with the Prophecy Club with your prayers and donations today.
Now from the Prophecy Club, some exciting opportunities for you. The Prophecy Club is having some awesome speakers in October. Friday, October the 5th, is Shane Warren speaking on the storm, judgment, and revival. He says he heard God say, "They divided my land, Now I will divide their land. He was also told the dollar will die, major riots will occur all across America, people will demand their entitlements, and he was told that America's judgment arrives in 2020. Saturday, October 6th, it's Bill Federer, 3 DVDs on that Saturday, 11 to 1, 2 to 4, and 5 to 7 p.m. First DVD, Change to Chains, the 600-year quest for global control. Then Islamic conquest, past and present. Muslims' plans for the future. Then 32 miracles in American history. Then Sunday morning, October 7th, Bill Federer will minister at 9:30 and Bree Keaton will minister at 10:30 at the Spirit of Prophecy Church. Monday evening, October the 8th, Bree Keaton speaking on Rescue Pygmies. God said, go find the pygmies. So a fair-skinned blonde woman went to the deepest, darkest, most dangerous parts of the Congo jungle and found pygmies. She found that they were being eaten by the rebels as food. She will tell some amazing stories of how God allowed her to lead some 45,000 pygmies to the Lord Jesus and the supernatural protection he gave her in the process. Tuesday evening, October the 9th, Maurice Sklar will speak on Revelations for the Midnight Hour. He was a child prodigy with the violin, and in 1985, God began to show him visions of the future. He will share 10 visions of America's fall and the end times. Some of his noted prophecies are, the dollar will lose 30% more and then totally die. All U.S. wealth will be lost overnight. The bride is not ready. Many in the church will awaken and return to Christ. There will be massive riots across America. Many nations will attack Israel. Nukes will be used. Revival will come to the U.S. There will be cities of refuge. Israel will win World War III and get back all of her land, and masses will move to Israel, and the internet will grow evil and oppressive. Friday evening, October the 26th, Daniel Davis will speak on I Saw the Dollar Dead. He is a missionary to Costa Rica and had a 3-part dream. He was shown the death of the dollar and its global impact. All property lines will be dissolved. He was shown the rise of the one world government and the following currency and Agenda 21 being implemented. He was told that communism is actually our greatest enemy. He was shown a multi-headed, multi-crowned dragon will arise. Saturday evening, October 27th, Michael Boldea will speak on the suffering or the glory. Michael is the grandson of Dimitri Duduman, the Romanian pastor that was put on the electric chair twice. And then later, God showed him that the Russians will attack and defeat America with nuclear weapons in one day following an internal revolution. The same angel that spoke to Dimitri now comes to Michael, and Michael says if we focus on the suffering, we will miss on the glory. And the only way to get the glory is through the suffering. He will cover everything from what we expect to see in the physical as well as in the spiritual to the coming persecution, and he's going to discuss the hot topic of pre, mid, and post-tribulation and why going through the tribulation ought not to be the thing believers should fear. He says blood will be on the streets in America before the end of 2012. The meetings are at the Spirit of Prophecy Church, 2540 K Avenue, Suite 100 in Plano. That's on the corner of Park and K in Plano. Doors open at 6, speaking from 7 to 10:30. Suggested gift at the door, $10 per person. There's a $10 suggested gift at the door for each talk, or you can come to all of them for a $50 donation. That's October 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. That's Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday. And then Friday, October 26th. And Saturday, October 27th. You can go to prophecyclub.com for more details. The DVD for each speaker is available for a gift of just $30, or you can get all 8 talks valued at $240 for a gift to the ministry of just $150. Call 785-266-1112 to order your DVDs now. That's at the Spirit of Prophecy Church on the corner of Park and K in Plano. Doors open at 6, speaking from 7 to 10:30. See you there! If you would like to find out more about our vision to find oil in Israel, call 877-645-4772. That's 877-OIL-ISRAEL or 877-645-4772. That's 877-OIL-ISRAEL or 877-645-4772. There's no obligation. They'll send you out a free packet explaining our vision.